Hi then, welcome back to another BackupBerry tutorial video. In this video, video number 4, we're going to talk about navigating the backup software. If you recall, in the previous video we downloaded the software and installed it. So now we are presented with the splash screen which is asking us for our user account and password. So if you recall, we received an email with our user account, username and password, as well as the username and password that are listed under the authentication details in our client portal. They're both the same details, so we're going to take that and pop it in to the software. Now remember, we can also change the password here, but we will leave this password because it is a good strong password, as it contains uppercase, lowercase, as well as alphanumeric and special characters. We're going to select the product edition. So depending on what product you signed up for, remember we signed up for a trial. So we're just going to select the desktop server file backup edition. However, if you signed up and purchased an image version or Microsoft SQL Exchange or a Ultimate edition or even a virtual machine edition, you would select that here. But we're going to select just the desktop server file backup edition and OK. Okay, so now that we've entered our details in there, we are presented with the dashboard for the BackupBerry software. As you can see on the top here, if we start at the top left, we've got the BackupBerry icon as well as a refresh icon. Underneath that, we have a BackupBerry menu, which is basically the equivalent of your file menu. We have the BackupBerry account, and here was the initial screen that we had. So let's have a look at this initial screen. We've popped our user account in there as well as the password that we were given. We've also selected our product edition. We can change our password or we can request a new password. If we click underneath the package edition, the product edition, we see advanced settings. When we click on advanced settings, we can retrieve destinations. As you can see, this is my laptop name there and the cloud account linked. It is currently using SSL, and we can select whether we want to restore only, which we don't. We want to backup here as well. We can also specify proxy settings in case you are sitting on an internet connection that requires a proxy server. You can select those the button there and then enter your proxy settings in here. You can also sign up for an account. If you've somehow been forwarded an email and you've downloaded the software from us and you haven't created an account, you can do that from here as well. So that was the first one. Now if we go to add a new account, we can actually add a new file system account, but this is for a file system that's currently on your network. So if you have a mapped drive from an SMB share, then you can do that here. Don't worry about that. We'll touch on that when we create our own backups shortly. We can also edit accounts. As you can see, we have our cloud account here and we can edit that account. Specify encryption password if we want. We will create an encryption password if you want. We will show you how to create an encryption password when we create our first backup, or we can run now, edit our schedules, and so forth. And remember, from the reason why you're able to edit your account is because you can have more than one account created on one PC or one device. So let's say, for instance, you want a specific data set to go to one account and another data set to go to another account that someone else has access to. You can do that from here by creating two different accounts on our online system and then adding those two accounts to your software. We can also import or export our configuration. So let's say, for instance, we had a previous laptop and we exported that configuration into our backup set, and now we want to have a new laptop and we've restored our data and we want to create the same data set, the backup schedule and the backup source and destination as well as the backup settings. We can export that configuration and then import it into the new laptop. Now let's look at the options. So under general, we have show the program and system tray, which will show down here. I'm going to say only when minimized so that we know when it's running. Show confirmation messages when closing the wizard. Protect console with master password. So if we select this every time we close the window or the wizard, it's going to ask us, do we really want to close it? So that's fine. I'm going to leave that unticked. Protect console with master password. If you have other people using your PC and you don't want them to access your BackupBerry software, dashboard, or any of the settings, you can create a master password that will prompt them for login when they try to open it. So on the next tab, we have connection. So the number of attempts, so you can have 3, the time between retry attempts, 400 milliseconds. Now this again is if you have a shoddy internet connection and you require a higher number of attempts because it drops a lot of packets, you would set this number to a higher number of attempts. As well as your ping response, you'd have to select the milliseconds as well and increase that. But for now, we're going to leave all of that as standard. Under bandwidth, we can select a throttling mechanism here. So if we have a specific set amount of bandwidth, we can select a smaller chunk to be assigned to BackupBerry so that we don't use up the entire pipe of your internet bandwidth. For instance, if you think of it like a plumbing mechanism, if you open your tap, you've got the full amount of water coming out of the tap, but if there's another tap open, then you're only going to get a little bit of that. So we can throttle that tap down here by selecting max speed and selecting the kilobytes per second that we can use, that BackupBerry uses. So we're going to leave that as unlimited. We can also select and create a schedule for the bandwidth restrictions. So for instance, if I wanted to go to unlimited between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. the next morning, but during the day, if I'm using the internet and I want to throttle that speed down because I need access to the internet as well, and I need fast access, then I can create a schedule here. That comes in very handy when you're doing your initial backup. So the next to that bandwidth tab, we have proxy. Again, you can add proxy settings in here if you are sitting on an internet connection that requires proxy settings. We have a retention policy. So the retention policy basically stipulates that if you back up a certain number of times, your retention is how many of those backups do you want to delete and how many do you want to save. So we can delete versions older than, let's say, 1 month, which means we have 1 month of backups stored online. So at any point in time, you can restore from the previous month's backups. Okay, this is only retention. We can always keep the last version because we don't want to delete all of it. Keep number of versions for each file. So we can keep a version of the file. Delay purge for 3 days if you want. History retention policy, delete records older than whatever day you select. And keep number of records. You can keep however number of records you want. Next to retention policy, we have logging. So we have 3 different sets of logging here: no log, low level, and high level. And if you are experiencing issues with the software, or if you're unable to back up and you're getting errors, you would most likely set that to high level so that you could display your log to our support team for assistance. So we can set the log folder, the path to where you want to back up the log, and we can even view the diagnostic log here. As you can see, we've got nothing in here. Above that, we have repository. So the current database size is 127 kilobytes. The database is the indexing. It holds the indexes for all your data that you're currently backing up. So we can shrink that database if it gets too large. Remember, it's not holding the data, it's just holding the indexes for the database. And we can change the location. We can enable low disk space alert so that it will alert us. And next to repository, we have advanced. So under setup advanced options, we've got the chunk size. And we can specify the chunk size of a file that will be uploaded to cloud storage. Chunk size must be between 5 megs and 5 gigs. Now remember, the smaller the chunk size, the more faster it is to upload, but the longer it takes to break up the data. So you want to find a good in between here. We've got 10 megs, which is pretty good. Thread count, we've got 6. So we've got 6 consecutive outgoing connections to our online storage system that will send 6 chunks of the data up at any given time simultaneously. Process priority. So the process priority is currently normal, but you can select a different process priority if you want. If you want one backup set to have higher priority than another backup set, you would set that up here or in the backup settings itself. We can prevent computer from sleeping when the plan is running because we don't want the computer to shut down halfway through our backup. And we can clear archive attribute during backup. Now the archive attribute is the current metadata that's attached to the backup, which you would require in most instances, so we don't want to require that. We don't want to clear that unless we really have to if there's a problem. Under memory options, we can select how much of memory the system uses, either automatic or we can select one here, unlimited disk usage. We're going to select that to unlimited, and we also have a temporary folder. Now, in most cases, if you're running in a business that has an online domain controller and your IT personnel has set up a domain controller, they might actually do a folder redirect. So your home folder is redirected to the domain controller to the storage server. And if that's the case, we'll often get failures on the temp path because the temporary location is sitting on a network share. And if that's the case, then we would have to come here and select a different temp path. But by default, the system uses a percentage temp percentage, which is in your C drive local user settings. So let's just click OK there. So that was under options. And now if you look under here, we've got files, restore, refresh, and search. And next to home, we have tools. So under tools, we've got options again, which brings up the options box that we just went through. We've got network credentials. If you click on network credentials, you can select and add many different network credentials for the different paths. So let's say, for instance, you have a mapped drive, as I do here. So I have a mapped drive to a NAS, and I want to back up all of this NAS data. But now, if, for instance, I need to log in every time I access this NAS, the BackupBerry software will not be able to do that unless I'm logged in currently. But if we add a network credential here for the path, it will use these credentials to log into that path to back up that data. Okay. Diagnostic. Here we can run diagnostics to send to support if we have any issues. Disk capacity. As you can see, if we click on disk capacity, it opens up this page here that tells us how many drives we have and their current usage. Here we can change our service account, and we can also show predefined plans, of which we have none. We can change our language as well, and again we can import and export configuration. So let's go back to the home tab at the top. In fact, let's go to the dashboard. So we clicked on home and we clicked on the welcome tab here. So here we have our upcoming plans and what have you. However, we don't have anything in there yet. So in the next video, we're going to show you how to create your first backup.